Welcome back to Trust Your Eyes for round 8. We got another interesting set of results over the weekend and there's plenty to discuss. We have another 7 topics to look at, so let's start. A late Nick Dacos goal won the game for Collingwood on Friday night. Were the Pies impressive or were the Blues more disappointing, coming in as favourites? I was more impressed by Collingwood than I was disappointed in the Blues, but overall it was a pretty close game that could have gone either way. I did think Collingwood was kind of the better team. I know that's strange to say when the scores are that tight, but it just felt like they had a little more control. Impressed by them. I like how they get to rest Goey and Mitchell from their injuries and win a game against a very good team. If they can win in the next week or two as well, while they can get especially Goey fit, that will set them up really well. And Dacos is back in the form. I called for it last week. He'd been going okay, but he had that impact especially in the last quarter. So overall, Collingwood are in good shape. Hopefully, I know Meyer checks out now as well. They can get a few plays back over the next month or so. Overall, with the Blues, I thought they were okay. I was a little disappointed, I can't lie. I thought their bottom 6 were really poor, especially the small forwards like Fantasia. Just couldn't get any rhythm into their games. And Charlie Curnow, there's a bit of pressure on him, especially in these big games. He struggled in the finals series last year. Kicked a couple goals, but I thought Darcy Moore controlled the back line for majority of the night and won that duel. I know they don't play one-on-one a whole lot, but it just felt like Darcy Moore's influence was pretty strong. But overall, impressed by the Pies. Still not convinced that they're back to their best yet. And Carlton, they'll be okay when they get a few more defenders back and get healthy. Port Adelaide have lost 2 of their past 3 games, and now captain Connor Rozee will be out at least for the next week. On a scale of 1 to 10, what's the level of worry Power fans should have? I'm not going to go too far with this. It was a big showdown, and Adelaide seem to get up for these. They've won the last 3 now. So I'll give it a 5 out of 10. I think there should be about a medium level of concern, and it's mainly to do with the health of the team. We saw Rozee, that was just a debacle. He probably shouldn't have played, and now he's going to miss an extended period of time. You take the chance, and it ended up backfiring. But it's the other forwards like Marshall and Georgiadis. Not sure what their condition is at the time of making this. Hopefully they're okay, but even if they get through, they'll be sore. And who knows about Aliir? Aliir's had a couple concussions in recent times. He'll come back, but if he gets another one, there could be potential issues there. And Lachlan Jones seemed to do his hamstring as well at the end of the game. He kept on playing, but you wonder with the Rozee thing whether they'll be conservative with him. Thought their defence was poor, just basic defending like punching and spoiling. The ball kept getting over the back and Adelaide kept scoring pretty easily. Just quickly on the Crows, they looked energised. Saligo in the midfield has given them a real spark. He has some Lachie Neale about him and tackled really well. So the Crows are back. They look strong and powerful. They got Brisbane this week at Adelaide Oval, which is a new test. So that'll be great. And Port Adelaide, I think there should be a medium level of concern there. Melbourne handed Geelong the first loss of their season in a scrappy affair. However, Tom Hawkins extends his goalless run to 4 games. Is he washed up, or is this an early season lull in form? Well, like that night in Brisbane 2 or 3 weeks ago, it really wasn't a key forwards night. None of Melbourne's key forwards did anything, and his teammate Jeremy Cameron had his worst game for the season. So there is some context we have to add with Tom Hawkins. I'm going to stick with more of an early season lull in form. I still think he's working his way through the long campaign. Physically, he does look heavy, which he has for majority of the back half of his career, especially in his 30s and beyond. He's had that real strength. Obviously not a runner like Jeremy Cameron, but when you get older, it's harder to turn when you carry that much weight. I know a lot of athletes in the world, especially in the NBA, NFL, when they get older, they lose more weight deliberately to try to keep their bodies light. He's obviously not going to go in that direction, so that's something to keep an eye on. Again, the movement's not the same, and he's not getting that ruck advantage as well. He can't quite kind of push the ruck under the ball and snag it or get little handballs out to his midfielders or forwards. But I reckon all he needs is one big game, kick 4 or 5 against a bad team to get his rhythm back, to get back into form, and I think he'll be fine. So there is a little bit of worry, but I'm going to stick with an early season lull He's too experienced, too much of a campaign veteran to go goalless a whole lot longer. The Bombers held off the West Coast Eagles at Optus Oval on Saturday night. How impressive a win is this on a scale of 1 to 10? And can Captain Zach Merrett win the Brownlow? I'm going to give this a 7 out of 10, which you might think's a bit of a high rating, but I think fair. I've watched West Coast pretty closely the last few weeks. They're no joke. It's a shame Elliot Yeo's gone down with a groin. Apparently it's not that bad to only miss a week or two, but Jake Waterman's back in form. Sadly, again, he's going to be out with concussion. But a lot of their senior guys are just back on track, like McGovern and Kelly. They're playing great football, and at home they know how to play the oval well. I think they're going to take a couple more scouts. Great coaching by Brad Scott. He must be in the running for Coach of the Year, although his brother Chris Scott might be in the number 1 spot at this time. I think they've improved the depth in the middle. Merrett, Parrish, we know what we're going to get, but they've put in Archie Perkins a little bit. Setterfield can play a role if it's needed, and Sam Durham's been one of the shining lights. He's that bigger body they want in terms of his height. He still needs to fill out a bit, but I think he had another 25 disposals. He's been fantastic. The defence as a whole, you can go through each one of them. They've all improved across the board. McGrath's turned into one of the best small defenders in the competition. And on Merrett, obviously he can win the Brownlow. Definitely had 3 vote games the past 2 weeks. He's kicking goals, not something he's done a lot in the past, and he's getting good publicity, which is a strong sign. So all is looking very good at Essendon. The Western Bulldogs lost by 7 points to Hawthorn on Sunday. It was a great win for the Hawks, but what is there to make of the floundering Bulldogs? Well, this is close to home because I am a Bulldog fan. I'm kind of living this frustration out at the moment. First of all, it was an important win for Hawthorn, and Sam Mitchell definitely eases a lot of the pressure off. And I thought it was a warrior effort by James Sicily. Looked frustrated early, but composed himself and was very important, just in a leadership role up forward. For Hawthorn, battling through a couple brutal injuries with his ankle and shoulder. With the Western Bulldogs, to me it's clearly changing of the guard. I think this group from about 2020 to 2023 had their shot. They did make a grand final, but it's time. I think those in the club, especially Luke Beveridge, know that they're just not quite good enough, which is okay. I wish they would come out and say that, but they're not going to, for sponsorship and kind of fans and membership reasons. Like, they can't kind of admit the season's over. So they're going to play with youth. We saw Charlie Clark come in. I think there's going to be a few more debutants coming out of the seconds. They're experimenting. Ed Richards kind of played forward, midfield. So the next wave is coming in. And with Luke Beveridge, I have no idea if he's going to stay or go. Will it make a huge difference? I'm not too sure. The reality is he going to be there by the time they get to their next grand final? You'd say it's unlikely unless he coaches into year 13 or 14, but they do need to beef up the assistant group because the forward line with the talent that's there isn't quite functioning kind of from basic mechanisms, and they also need to look at trying to improve the key defensive stock. So I think there's going to be some more frustrating times ahead if you're a Bulldog supporter. The Q Clash finished as a comprehensive win for the Brisbane Lions. It's 1 week only, but are they finally back on track, or are issues still ahead of them? Well, starting off on the field, they did get some continuity, I thought, between the midfield and the forward line, put up a very nice score. The midfield, Dunkley, McCluggage and Neal all fired, and Zorko out of defence was just brilliant. Definitely deserved the best on ground medal, had a massive impact on the game. But there are issues ahead, and I'm definitely not convinced. If I'm not convinced on Collingwood, I'm definitely not convinced that Brisbane will be back at the pointy end of the year. Their injuries are just brutal at this point. Looks like Gardner and McCarthy have an ACL. Ainsworth's having a breakout year. He'll miss with concussion. And then Starcevic hurt his calf in the warm-up. And you can pair that with Ashcroft, who still hasn't come back, and Kadeen Coleman out of defence. It's a lot of their best 22 players out. It's going to test their depth a lot. I'm not sure they have it, because when you lose 6, 7 or 8 guys from your best 22, you basically can't cover it. You can cover, maximum 3 or 4 with quality players. But at least a lot of their key players are back on form, so we'll see if that can continue. They have to go to Adelaide next week, where they lost last season, so that'll be very difficult. But if they win it, maybe they can get back into some rhythm and bank a few wins, so in the back half of the year they can get all their players back and make a charge into the final series if they make it. To finish off, we go to the Battle of the Bridge. Toby Green has been out of form compared to his 66 goals in 2023. He has just 9 goals for the season and hasn't kicked a single goal in his last 2 games. So why is Toby struggling? Well, to me, it looks like Toby's reverted back a little bit to his old ways. He looks frustrated out there. He's not getting any space. And he looks a little confused at times whether he plays deep or higher up the ground, kind of as an extra midfielder in that forward half. So he's getting stuck in between, can't get a whole lot of rhythm. He's getting fines again. Missed that game through suspension for that hit on Jordan Boyd. So again, he's just off. Maybe injury, although it looks like he had a full pre-season. Teams are obviously going to clamp down really heavily. You can't let a guy kick 66 goals for the season and then do nothing about it. So maybe it's time for a run on the ball. He did it, I think the last time was about 2019 or 2018. He had a couple months there and put up huge numbers. And it would fit the GWS needs for right now. We know Cornelio's out. Tom Green rolled his ankle, although it looks like he's okay. So I reckon it's time for him to go on ball. They got plenty of small forwards. They found another in Darcy Jones in the last couple of weeks. I think it would free up Toby Green just to play a bit more naturally, maybe sneak forward through the midfield to kick some goals. And it'll also give Giants a bit of spark and a bit of nastiness in that midfield. Just a couple of their soldiers hurt at the moment. Thank you for listening to the Round 8 edition of Trust Your Eyes. I hope you enjoyed. We've got another great round coming up, plenty of big games, and I'll be back with you guys next week. Thanks.